This is your wake-up call.
This Guy's Garage. Like and subscribe.
Thank you, Chair. I think we have quite a significant problem here, and I'm starting to perceive what is perhaps the diabolical genius behind this Frankenstein structure of an organization. To be clear, the reason this committee is interested in the Trudeau Foundation is not in terms of some private charitable organization that may have some problems. The public interest in the Trudeau Foundation is because this is a public institution. It's subject to ATIP. It's subject to various statutes, including the Federal Accountability Act. But it is not, in a sense, also a purely public institution. It has many features of public institution, including a massive injection of public money, but it also receives private donations in a way that makes it susceptible to foreign influence. You have foreign interference coming through external donations to the Trudeau Foundation at the same time as it's able to use public money. And it also benefits from the fact that it shares the name of the Prime Minister, but also there is a privileged position of power and influence for the Trudeau family within the Foundation. So you have this odd organizational amalgam of family foundation with protected influence by the Prime Minister's family, public institution with public money in it, and the ability to receive foreign private donations. This makes it opaque and hard to investigate, and this also makes it at much greater risk, I think, of foreign influence, as I've spoken about before. And this is evident as we try to get to the bottom here of what happened, because the Foundation said, we want the Auditor General to investigate. And initially, people on this committee said, we want the Auditor General to investigate. And the Auditor General said, well, no, I can't investigate because I can investigate where public dollars were spent, but I don't investigate where private donations were spent. So then we said, okay, well, let's have the CRA investigate. Let's ask the CRA to investigate. But what you're telling us is that you can't give us any information, basically, about what's going on. You can't tell us if you're auditing it. You can't tell us any of these details. And you can't report to us unless you've come to specific conclusions, and there's no opportunity for public scrutiny. So we have, because of the way this foundation was set up by a previous Liberal government, we have an opaqueness and an inability to actually say who's investigating, are they investigating, and to ask them what their timelines and results are going to be for that investigation. So I would just put to you that this is a significant problem for the level of accountability that we would expect of a public foundation with control, protected influence by members of the Prime Minister's family, because again, you're not able to respond to the things that we're asking. But I do want to ask you. You spoke about when we get a lead. When we get a lead, that can inform what we do. How responsive would you be in general to a parliamentary committee saying, we think it's important for CRA to look at this? If the House of Commons were to concur in the report from this committee, and the House of Commons were to vote saying, we're asking the CRA to look at it. Generally, the way the Auditor General does it is if a request has come, she preserves her independence, but she takes seriously recommendations that come from Parliament. If Parliament votes to say, we think the Trudeau Foundation needs to be audited, is that something you would take into consideration? Let's say not any foundation. Would you take that into consideration, or would you say, too bad, we're going to make our own decisions, we're going to do whatever we want?
Mr. Chair, maybe I'll just separate that out a little bit, and then my colleagues may want to answer more on the question of foundations, private, public, and not talking about one.
Sorry, I'm very tight for time, so if you can just be as quick as possible.
Yeah, but I think it's an important part of your question. What I would say in terms of our role in looking at this kind of thing, first off, when we get information and a lead, we act on it. So we don't need Parliament or anybody to come in and tell us. Like, if we get information that we think that something seems to be going wrong, we pursue it. Okay.
No, but is Parliament saying we think this is important and in the public interest? Is that part of the data you look at, or not really?
Take into account for sure.
Okay.
But I'm saying it doesn't take that for us to look into something.
Okay,
so,
30
so
seconds,
that's
Mr.
one.
I do, just in the time I have left, I want to ask you about the rules against dishonest conduct. Can you confirm that a charitable organization can already be deregistered for dishonest conduct, and would, for instance, telling the public a donation has been returned when it hadn't been returned constitute dishonest conduct, in your view?
Defer to the experts on that specific question, but if I just finish the one point quickly on the other one. When you look at what CRA's role in here, we are basically regulating the rules in the Income Tax Act. So there may be a lot of things happening within a foundation or a charity. We're focused on what do the rules of the income tax say, and are they respecting them in terms of, we've talked about receipting, et cetera. So I'll leave it at that for that moment. In terms of the dishonest conduct, I don't know if that would qualify, or if we could say. What
Mr.
would-
Jensen, don't interrupt.
category.
I'll allow an answer, but your time is up. So, Ms. Carr, if you'd like to give a
could perhaps
brief
go
answer
back
to
to
that
the
question,
committee.
I'm certainly all ears.
Yeah, so, charities can't carry out activities that are illegal. So, depending on the particular facts of a situation, if that was an illegal activity, that is something that would be of interest to us from a compliance perspective. And I also just wanted to correct the record. I know the name of the organization includes the word foundation, but this organization is actually registered as a charitable organization, which is generally a doer.
Thank you very much.
Another thing
Thank you.
that's
Time is up,
misleading about it.
Mr. Genuous. Ms.
Is it CRA's policy to allow a organization to choose the name of, or put the donation any name that they choose, or must it reflect the actual substance of the transaction? In other words, where the actual money came from?
The donation under our rules, as we administer the income tax, has to come from the true donor. And there's actually an interesting example that the team has raised with me, so that you might gather donations at a store near the cash register, and then the store submits them to us, but really the true donor is the people that put the money at the cash register. So we would, from our viewpoint of looking at it, whether it complies with the Income Tax Act, we would look to the true donor of the property, or the giver of the gift.
So I guess just to put a hypothetical in front of you, if in fact a foreign state gave $440,000 to a shell corporation, the shell corporation then then immediately transferred that money on to a charity, who should that receipt be issued to?
Yeah, I'm Mr. Chair, I'm probably not going to go too far into hypotheticals in this world, because often when you look at it, there's what does the charity know at the time, and what are the true facts of the situation. So it probably would be unfair for me to speculate on that in this case. I will say, though, we do look to the extent the case comes in front of our attention, we would look to the true donor.
But you're looking towards the substance of just in general. I'm not talking about that specific case, but you're looking from where the money, as you gave with the cash registered example, you're looking to where the actual funds came from, and you believe, in general, that that's where the receipt should go, correct?
Yeah, I think and I'll turn to my colleague, perhaps Jeff, but in the legal world, there's the question of giving the gift and how do you treat that legally, and I think we draw our rules from that basis.
That's fine.
Okay.
You've covered it well. Sorry, Mr. Hamilton. We've spent so much time together, Bobby. Yeah. But on that, so if in fact a receipt was given to the incorrect donor, I believe that there's a penalty of 125%. So if an organization has purposely and willfully put the incorrect name on a donation receipt, that is punishable by 125% penalty.
I can't, Sharmila may be able to talk about the penalty, but I would just note that people can give anonymous donations. There doesn't have to be a receipt with every donation. The receipt is valuable if you're going to claim the tax deduction.
If an organization does issue one and willfully puts the incorrect donor, in other words, the individual who did not donate the money, that there is a penalty attached. As you said, registration, although it has privileges, comes with its responsibilities.
Yeah, Sharmila, could you elaborate?
So when we are taking compliance actions, there's a range of options available to us. If it's a first offense, maybe it's something that can be corrected through an education letter. If it's something that the charity has repeated over time, it may be something that merits a penalty. If you're interested in the various penalties under the Income Tax Act, that's certainly something we could provide to you in writing.
So would it also be potentially an offense if you put an incorrect address, knowing that that's not actually the organization? So if does the information on the receipt have to be correct?
In the income tax regulations, there's outlined all of the requirements for proper receipting. They are quite numerous, the requirements for the receipts. It has to be followed. But in each situation, you're going to have to look at the facts and go in and see what's actually happened.
Now, specifically with this charity, like we've seen them violate the rules and knowingly violate the rules in how they issued the receipts for the donations from the two gentlemen linked to the Beijing communists. Apparently, they are not in compliance with their disbursement obligations. They're also apparently have not followed their obligations under the CNCA requirements as a soliciting corp. Like, would this trigger an audit in other charities?
I guess, Mr. Chair, the first thing I would say is I don't know the facts of the situation.
Okay, we know the facts. I just told you the facts, Mr. Hamilton, so you're aware.
What I read.
It's broadly known in the country.
Yeah,
so please don't say you don't know.
But
I've laid it out clearly to you, Mr. Hamilton. Would this trigger an audit in other charities? And these are known facts. These are not suppositions. They're known facts.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would not comment, even if we went in, but I certainly wouldn't offer a comment without having our investigation look to confirm the circumstances.
What would it take to trigger an audit then?
So would this kind of thing, if somebody gave us a lead and said, well, this is what is happening?
Do you consider the information you've heard in committee and in ethics a lead? Would that not be enough for you?
But the question I think you're asking is, would it trigger an audit? Right, as opposed to
what would it take to
would it trigger
an audit?
us to take a look? Okay.
Would it
but
trigger you to take a look?
You're taking a step to go. Okay. Once we take a look, does that take us all the way down? And I guess I'm just not going to comment on that. But I mean, the basic point you're raising, if we hear some things that we think have the potential to be offside,
what you've heard,
would we take a look?
Would it have the potential, in your own words? What you've heard today and in the ethics committee and reported in the newspapers and very public, would that have the potential, in your own words?
The potential for us to take a look?
Yes.
Could be. I mean, I think that's what we've said about leads. When somebody gives us a lead,
one of my constituents in Edmonton.
Just gentlemen, Mr. McCauley, I stopped the clock. But just gentlemen, I don't mind one member providing pushback, but I don't need the gallery. So, Mr. McCauley, if you can pose your questions.
One of my constituents is part of a charitable organization. It's been in the news a lot. It's before the Ontario Supreme Court, which publicly rebuked the CRA. It's the Muslim Association of Canada. I've looked at their file. I looked at the harassment and Islamophobia, perhaps, involved in the CRA's harassment of that charity and other faith-based charities. Like, you'll go after those charities, but this doesn't, you can't even comment if it has the potential to even look at it.
I'm not going to really comment on either of those specific circumstances. Now, there's some things that are in the court that are on the public record.
Okay.
I guess my point to you is that when we hear about things, either through our own work or elsewhere, that cause us to think there might be something inappropriate, we investigate.
Okay.
I would hope where that leads us and how far it goes.
That you would actually do your role and investigate. Ms. Kerr, I want to ask you, you talked about first offense for violating the rules, may involve, training and perhaps a second offense. I'm curious, do your rules and regulations allow you to arbitrarily offer further training for or offenses. The reason I ask, these are mostly, like, it's a large charity, professional, with a lot of money, professionally audited. Like, I'm curious, like, why would someone you would not provide that training to a regular tax-paying Canadian? Because I know I over-contributed on a TFSA once and got dinged. They didn't offer me an out. I don't have the resources like this. Who would decide that? Just very briefly.
So with the charitable sector.
Actually, sorry, I'm going to be rude. I'm going to interrupt. Could you get back to us in writing on that? Who would make that decision? Mr. Hamilton, couple quick questions for you. We've heard about the Chinese police stations operating in Canada. Service La Famille Chinois de Grand Montreal, Centre Sino-Quebec de la Rive Sud are both not-for-profits who have been identified as Chinese police stations operating harassing Canadians. Would CRA be investigating those not-for-profits?
I have no comment on that.
Why not? You're the head of the CRA. These are not-for-profits who are harassing Canadians. Chinese, Beijing communist-operated police stations operating the guys are not-for-profit, and the head of CRA won't comment? Will you be investigating these?
Yeah, I'm not going to comment on that. On that specific situation about those specific entities, I can't.
Is that enough as a lead to investigate?
Thank you very much. We've heard from the witness, Mr. McCauley. I appreciate the question. Turning now to our